Welcome to the Doin Alright podcast presented by our friends at Prize Picks.
And we are back with a history lesson edition of the Doin Alright podcast. We told you we was gonna have some friends. I think me and Bryan are quietly competing with booking guests. You know, I'll bring my guys in.
Yeah.
And Bryan will hit us with a little bit of history. Some cats that's been doing this thing for a long time. And honestly, I got to be a part of the show. I got to ask questions, but I really just like to listen and tune in and gather information. But that's what y'all gonna be doing today. Formerly of ESPN for 25 plus years. I was born in '92. So I don't know nothing. Currently Doomsday Podcast and Channel 8. We have Ed Werder edition of the Doin Alright podcast. Ed Werder, what's happening?
It's an honor to follow Brad Sham as one of your old-time guests.
See,
is the old-timer show now?
Sometimes I'll bring in the 28 and 30-year-olds and we'll do we'll just do the young folk stuff, and then Bryan will go and grab a historian. Okay. And then we'll talk a little history. But Brad likes to fight. I didn't know Brad liked to fight when I first met him, but Brad likes to give a little back and forth. Hopefully we don't fuss a bunch. But me and Brad fussed at least 3 times just.
But it's happened before.
It happens every time.
The precedent has been established by Brad Sham.
It's been established. But if you want to fuss, knock yourself out. This is a fuss-free environment. Ed, I got a question. And I got good questions, too. But this is a layup for you.
We'll be the judge of that.
You lucky we ain't got camera for us. Brad said the same thing. Here's your layup, okay? Something easy. You've been doing this for longer than I've been alive. How has social media changed your job? Once upon a time, some cowboy stuff will happen. You'll go up and ask somebody a question. You'll put it on print, put it on paper. Then you evolve into, I got to tweet about this and maybe quote tweet something. Then the Cowboys news, how it comes out. Social media makes that different. How has social media changed your job in this thing?
Well, I think when I started covering the Cowboys in 1989 with the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, then came back in 1992 and have been in Dallas ever since. You were talking about people who had journalism degrees, who had worked at small publications and gradually work their way up to larger newspapers or outlets like that. So these were people who had some level of institutional credibility and experience. And now you have people who don't necessarily have that, who have dubious contacts and questionable reputations, and everybody feels like they're Cowboys experts and they want to break news on the Cowboys or deliver informed opinions about the Cowboys. So the number of people who write about, report about, post on this team has dramatically increased. And I think it's hard for the audience, the viewers, the readers, to know who they can trust. So to me, that's one of the biggest changes in media these days. The other part of that is, when I worked at the Dallas Morning News of the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, as long as I knew whatever the news was going to be at 10 o'clock that night, nobody knew I didn't know at noon. Nobody was aware that I didn't know at 2 o'clock or 4 o'clock, And now it's like, a story can be broken any second of the day, and its value only lasts a brief period of time until somebody else posts something different on X or Facebook or whatever the outlet might be. So I think those are two of the biggest changes. The thing that I think is hardest for fans is discerning who really covers the team, who really has access to the people who are involved directly, who's in the locker room, who's at the games, who's credentialed and who's not. Yeah. I mean, there are people from out of state who, have tried to establish themselves and with varying degrees of success as experts, and it's hard to judge who is and who isn't.
What do you think about that personally, though? Because you're in the podcast game now, and I must say, the Doomsday Podcast, phenomenal name. Second best name for a podcast I've ever heard.
What's best?
This one right here.
Oh, okay. I figured that was good.
And this one right here on the corner. How is your view on that change? Like, are you able to, for example, I've grown up in social media not my whole life, but my whole Cowboy covering career, right? So I have the ability to go, all right, I'm not going to listen to him. Okay, if Todd Archer or Nick Harris didn't say it, I'm not going to believe if what this cat says. But there are places where Voch and Bryan exists, or where some of these other or the Doomsday Pod exists, right? So has your view on podcasting changed a little bit? Because I would imagine when you were coming up, if it wasn't TV, radio, or print, it wasn't credible, I would say.
Or I wasn't even aware of it.
Sure.
I'm involved. I'm on X. You know, I have like 250,000 followers, and I know who's credible because I go to the Star.
Sure.
You know, I attend some of the practices and all the home games at the very least, so I know who's there. I know who's around. I have a sense of who's connected and who's not. I know Bryan is. Like, Bryan was very involved in the Cowboys' inner sanctum, and he knew what was going on. He still has access to people that the rest of us don't. And even if I have access to the same person he does, he worked with that person. I didn't. So I don't know that. I'm not saying that social media is a bad thing altogether. I just think it's incredibly hard across the board in every genre to know like what the truth actually is.
Sure.
I mean, there used to just be everybody had one set of facts, and the facts were the facts, and we knew what they were. And now everybody has the different facts. Like CNN has different facts than Fox News has. You know, I mean, it's insane. Sure. The facts are the facts, and different interpretations of those facts, different opinions about those facts. That's all fair, but I don't think anybody really knows what the facts are anymore, and there doesn't seem to be the same. I just don't think people are held to the same standard as we were in more traditional times when you younger people were. Maybe not as involved as you are now.
Man, Bryan, I got one more, please.
You got it.
This is all fascinating. So like, what do you do? Because Twitter is fast, like it's instant. It's right now. Dak Prescott robs a bank. I just happen to be at the Denny's across the street. I tweet, "Hey, y'all, Dak Prescott robbed a bank." You know what I mean? There has to be a certain level of.
If I were you, I'd post that you witnessed Dak Prescott robbing the bank.
It's definitely gonna be per Voch. I want all the credit for catching Dak Prescott robbed the bank. But I guess what I'm saying is,
and he has robbed a bank a few times.
I would assume
the Bank of Jerry.
You damn straight he has. But sources come from different places now. Shouts out to my man Will Steele. But if something happens at the Star and the janitor saw it, and somebody talked to the janitor, that's technically a source that works, right? So, as an older gentleman, with all due respect, you do have to balance the amount of information that's coming at you instantly, via Twitter, right?
As far as reacting to
as far as
somebody posts?
As far as I saw it, but Jane didn't.
Yeah.
I saw it, but Todd Archer didn't.
I'm going to go back to I know who I trust.
Sure.
I know who's earned my trust.
Absolutely.
And like the people I trust, I think are the most trustworthy people covering the NFL, covering the Cowboys, whatever the case may be. So I'm going to rely on my judgment in that regard. And that's all based on the experience I've had with people, attending press conferences, asking questions. I see what they post. I know whether they're credible or they're not, for the most part, pretty quickly.
Yeah. We're going to take a quick break.
You have advertisers on this podcast? You have advertisers?
We make a little money up here.
All right.
Hey, look, we're going to rob a bank real fast. We'll be right back.
This segment is brought to you by our good friends at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 sports picks app. And it's really simple to use. You just pick more or less on a few players' stats, and that's your lineup. So if you're looking at things like points, yards, strikeouts, and you decide, is this player going to go more or less than that number? It's available in most states, including Texas, so you can jump in and play. If you're new, download the Prize Picks app, use the code HMA, and when you play your first $5, you get $50 in lineups instantly. And you can follow me there too, at Crown Media. So you can see my picks before the show and ride along with me with what I'm playing. All right, let's get into tonight's action. I'm going to go with Chris Sale of the Atlanta Braves. We're going to go less than 7 strikeouts. And we're going to focus now on the WNBA, Paige Beckers. We're going to go more than 14.5 points. So, again, that's Prize Picks. Use the code HMA, play $5, and get 50 in lineups. Good luck tonight.
Put us on 3, please. Go ahead, Bryan.
Hey, Ed, I was going to ask you, how has your relationship with players changed over the years? You covered a locker room that was a championship locker room, Super Bowl, the Michael Irvins, the Troy Aikmans, Emmitt Smith, Charles Haley. You covered those locker rooms. How has it changed over the year, your relationship from the early days to where you're at now?
I think it's always helpful, when you have experience with people over time, and they can make their own determination on whether to trust you or not, whether to confide in you or not, whether to cooperate or not. Obviously, there are a lot more people in the locker room now than there used to be. Well, when I first started doing this, it was easy to get, Troy Aikman or Emmitt Smith or Michael Irvin or Dion or any of these players in either a small group of like print-only beat writers at their lockers, or to ask them to get them one-on-one for a brief period of time. Or, in the case of Troy Aikman, you would just say to him, hey, I don't ask this of you all the time, but I'm doing something that really requires your opinion. Could you give me 15 minutes at some point this week? And without fail, you didn't have to chase him down. Like Alvin Harper, you spent a lot of time chasing down. Troy Aikman would just stop by and, okay, what do you need?
Right.
I think back then, people like him really respected the commitment that beat writers made in terms of the number of hours you spent at the facility in season and out. Whereas the TV people at the time, they would just come out for the, open locker room period and the coach's press conference, and then they left. They stay out there more now, but it's almost, it's so, like the Cowboys just bring Dak out once a week. They bring, featured players out in the hallway, once a week in front of their sponsored logo background, and everybody gets the same thing for the most part. It's really hard to get anybody one-on-one at the facility anymore.
Have you lost the ability to get relationships with the players? Do you not have the relationship? You mentioned Troy Aikman. I could see Troy just stopping by and say, hey, Ed, you good for the week? And you're like, man, I'm good. I got it. Is it harder today to build a relationship with players and to get the stories?
It's definitely harder because you just don't have the access to them that you used to. Like casual contact time is everything in building relationships between media and players. And, back when I first started doing this, you go to training camp, like you were having lunch with the players in the cafeteria. And hey, I need 15 minutes with Mark Stepnoski,
right.
And so you just take your tray and get your food and sit down and you'd interview the guy. Or you'd get him after practice one-on-one. To do that now is really hard. Everything is much more managed by the public relations people in the league than it was back when I first started.
So it's harder today to do your job than it was when you first started covering the Cowboys?
Well, it's harder for me now because I'm not out there every single day like I used to be when I was a beat writer and responsible for, anything Tim Calishaw missed on the beat on any given day. But I can remember, we'd sit out there in the off season and where the Fort Worth Star-Telegram and the Dallas Morning News, and until it folded Dallas Times-Herald, we all had little cubicles.
Right.
And they were positioned strategically as if we had put them in the building, but really we didn't. But they were right between the locker room and the parking lot. So the players had to, in season and out, walk right by, where we were.
So you knew who was going in and out of the building every day.
Right.
See, that's the one thing I can't fathom because I can get to Zion Childress easily. I can just walk up to Zion. Hey man, you know what I'm saying?
There's nobody's around him.
Right, but getting to Dak is impossible now. And you just say, oh yeah, we'll just walk up to Troy, Mike, and whoever, and we'll just talk to him. And I'm like, I can't even fathom that. Even in camp where they bring them to you, like you're still, all right, y'all, you got 5 minutes and we out of here. I just can't even fathom that.
Right. What do you get? 10 minutes with Dak? And Dak is great about answering questions, in my opinion. Like he takes them seriously, goes into great detail. He has a sense of what you're looking for.
Sure.
But in the case like I was talking about in the offseason, like my sports editor, Dave Smith, one of the most esteemed sports editors in the history of sports journalism, he calls me and says, hey, we don't want you to be at Valley Ranch in the offseason. You need to be down here at the Morning News at the offices and interacting with your colleagues. You don't work for the Cowboys. You work for us. You need to be down here. And I said, Dave, my responsibility is report on this team 365 days a year. So when you can tell me that Michael Irvin might walk past my desk, that Emmitt Smith might walk past my desk downtown at the offices of the Dallas Morning News, then I would agree that's where I need to be. But that's never going to happen. That's the last place those guys are going to be. And so he understood that, but he made me play softball with the team. And so that's how I socialized with my
How much harder is your job when the team sucks versus winning a championship?
Well, it's a lot harder, I think. I will say this, though, and I was headed toward this point a while ago, and sometimes it takes me a while to get there. And
I'm a pro. I knew that.
I might never make it. I knew that. Thanks for resetting that. I think one of the ways you do build relationships and build trust with players, in addition to just being around, consistently, they see what you report. They know how accurate your reporting is, and but to go from like in 1989 when Troy Aikman was 0-11 as a starter and the team was 1-15, and then to be there all the way through when they're winning Super Bowls and they're one of the great dynasties in the history of the game, like that's significant that they know you were there in the beginning and they saw how you treated them when they were losing. Right. And so they know if you're in it for the right reasons or you're not, Yeah. And so, I think it's harder in a lot of ways to cover a team that's not winning. The players are frustrated. They're sensitive, more sensitive than ever, in my opinion, to criticism, whether it's fair or it's not. They just don't like it. They're not used to it. They're shielded from it. And so that makes it difficult. And then there's the aspect of, man, people just don't care as much.
Sure.
Right. The audience just isn't there for this.
Sure.
They want to read about how great their team is and how well everybody's playing and all that kind of stuff. And it's hard to do it truthfully when a team is bad.
There's an idea that the players nowadays, they're younger, they're a lot more sensitive. Did you feel like that you could properly criticize the players back then and they'll look at you and go, okay, I get it, I understand. As opposed to nowadays, you could say something that's totally fair about a player, and next thing you know, they're tweeting at you saying you don't know what you're saying.
Yeah, but I would say even the 90s Cowboys players did like it. They like being criticized.
Right.
But I kind of go back to Troy. And one of the things Troy made clear to us as beat writers was, hey, you can say whatever you want about how I play. Like, everybody sees how I play. I know how I play. I know the truth about that. And I'm fine with you reporting that, hey, I played terrible. I was responsible for a loss, whatever. Yeah. But he didn't want anybody reporting on his off the field. And now, obviously, everything is viewed as fair game as far as reporting on players. And I think that creates a negative element in the relationship building between players and media.
I got one. This is one that I've been stewing on for a while. Tell me if it's a good question or not. just let me know if it's a good question, because I don't know. When you're covering the team, right? You're just covering the Cowboys, and some trouble happens. Treachery is afoot. Dak robbed the bank. And it's your responsibility to report that story, right? How do you balance being sensitive to the player, but also telling the truth? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, you robbed the bank, but do I talk about what the police did to you?
The hardship he was enduring.
Hey, he robbed the bank for this reason, right?
Yeah, I mean, you want ultimately the most important thing is that you're factually accurate.
Sure. I'll give you an example, right? Mozzie Smith. Mozzie Smith did not live up to his first round expectations. Comes out a little bit later, there was some mental health stuff going on, right? How, do you lean into the truth of it? Like, hey, Mozzie has some mental stuff, right? Do you lean into the realness of it, or do you go, hey, I'm going to give the kid a break and just type it out this way?
I'm all about reporting the facts as accurately as possible and putting everything into the proper context as much as I know what all the facts are.
Sure.
Right? I mean, I did a story after the Cowboys lost to the Falcons, and Leon Lett, failed another drug test. And that Monday morning, so Sunday night, from the game site, I reported it out, and I had a real conviction that I was accurate. And I reported that he had violated the drug policy and was subjected to another potential suspension. Sure. The next day, I'm at Valley Ranch, because you got to always go. Yeah. Like when you write something negative, when you report something negative, you have an obligation as a journalist to go to the building the next day and give that player and anybody else who wants to confront you about it the opportunity to do so face to face. And that's another way you earn players' respect. So I'm out there the next day just because I had to work anyway. But Kevin O'Neill, the trainer, is screaming at me, and he kept screaming, "You've marred this guy's career. You've ruined his career." Yeah. And I said, and he's screaming. Well, the whole building can hear. And I said, "Just tell me I'm wrong." And as much as he screamed and as much as he threatened me, he never told me I was wrong.
Yeah.
And so I was more convinced than ever that I was right.
Sure.
Yeah.
And, there was when Michael Irvin got hurt in Philadelphia, hurt his neck and the spinal stenosis was detected. I reported that on TV for ESPN, and somebody in the PR office says, "Hey, I don't watch what you've reported." They didn't want to give me they didn't want to say, we watch you all the time. We know everything you
ain't all that.
You reported. I'm not sure what you've been reporting, but somebody else told me in the building that you reported that Michael Irvin's career might be over, and I'm looking out for you, and I'm here to tell you that I haven't heard that.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I wouldn't have reported it if I wasn't 100% sure that I was right. Sure. The more important the story is, the more accurate you better be, because it's your reputation on the line. Your credibility is at stake. And I said, hey, thanks for looking out for me, even though I don't really think that was your motivation. But I know what I know, and I'm comfortable knowing that, and proved to be accurate.
Fair enough.
Can I tell one of my favorite? I've got a lot of Ed Werder stories that are my favorite ones.
Please.
But this goes back to a day when I was in the draft room for the Cowboys, and it's day 2 of the draft, and I'm standing there, and Ed's doing a stand-up for ESPN. Like, he is walking through what we're going to do the next couple of days in the draft.
They had 2 first-round picks?
Yeah. Well, no. This was another one. Okay. This was, we'd already made the first-round pick, so we're doing day 2 stuff, or day 3. And you're up there, and you're just walking the audience through everything we're about to do. And we're all standing around the TV watching. And it's me, Jerry, Steven, all the scouts. We're watching. Ed is like laying out everything that we had said in a meeting that we were doing. And Jerry looks at in the room, goes, "How does he know all this?" And Steven goes, "You told him, Dad." And Jerry goes, Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
I never reveal my sources.
But I remember
that's accurate.
I just remember Ed just laying out everything we were going to do. It just shows you how good he had the sources for the. And he said, "Well, look for the Cowboys, look for the Cowboys, look for the Cowboys," and we're just all going, "Damn!" It's like he was in the meeting with us here. And that's when Jerry just absentmindedly goes, "How does he know all this?" Yeah. And Steven goes, "You told him, Dad." But anyway, I want to. Can I go ahead? I'll let you comment.
I was just going to say one of the great things when I switched from being a competitive tennis player to being a average golfer, I joined Cowboys Golf Club.
Yes,
and when they were over in Irving, and Parcells
was always there hitting balls.
Was always there in the off season hitting balls. He didn't play golf; he hit balls, and he would sometimes see me out there and invite me in for an iced tea.
Right.
And I would obviously accommodate that request as often as I could. And so one year I'm out there, and it was the year that they drafted DeMarcus Ware and Marcus.
It was the 05
Spears.
draft.
Yeah.
The 05
2
draft.
first-round picks. And I told Bill in the pro shop, he said, "Where are you going for the draft?" I won't do my Bill Parcells impersonation. He said, "Where are you going for the draft?" And I said, "Well, I might go to San Diego because they have 2 picks, or I might go somewhere else for 2 picks, or I could stay here and cover your." "Oh, you should be here.
Yeah.
You should be here." I said, "Well, the only way I could be 100% sure that I would get assigned the Dallas draft is if you would agree that at some point you do a live interview with me."
Right.
"Okay," he says, "if you cover our draft, I'll do the."
Yeah.
And then as I'm walking out, he goes, "Hey, let me just tell you, if you're not here, you're not getting the interview." I understand the deal we just made.
Yeah.
So of course I'm going to be in Dallas. I'm assigned the Dallas draft. And that week of the draft, I went to Parcells and I said, "Hey, Bill, you know how you do these, production meetings before games. I generally do that before the draft. Look, I can't scoop the pick. Like,
right.
They won't even allow us if we know. Even on social media now, they don't let reporters scoop the pick. Right? They've come to the realization the audience wants the drama.
Right.
They want to hear it from the commissioner first, and so they never. But my thing was, what the value I could bring as a reporter is the context that we talked about earlier. Like, why did they do this? Right. Why is this their player? Who else did they look at? Anyway, so I asked Bill to do a production style draft meeting with me, and he said, "Absolutely not doing it." So I did it with Jerry.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. No, you did a great job because again, you laid it out, and I'm like, okay, yeah, he's got us.
Well, back then we didn't know if they were going to take Spears or Ware.
Right. No, we were sweating that one.
No, first or second. Because
exactly. There was a lot. Yeah.
And we didn't know if it was Merriman or Ware.
Sean Merriman.
I didn't know if it was Sean Merriman or Ware.
Right. No, you had it. You had it wired.
I knew what they wanted to do, and then Bill saw me before the draft started after I did my production meeting with someone else.
Yeah.
And he's like, who told you that? Well, you could really hurt us. And I'm like, I tried to get you to do this with me.
Yeah.
You know, and if you would have said, hey, don't report this, then I wouldn't have reported it until after the fact.
It was well done on your part. Talk about being
at the same time, Jerry's wanted to kill me more often.
I know, but no, you always had us wired very good. Let me ask you this. So you made history in breaking the Jimmy Johnson firing all those years ago when
Rick Goslin and I.
You and Rick Goslin. Was that right place, right time? Or was that just like you being really, really good at your job, you having a relationship with Jerry? How did, and if you could walk us through how that all transpired.
How long is the show? We're over in 8 minutes. I don't think I can squeeze it all.
Nah, you could go.
I'm done talking. I'm just about to listen for the rest of the way. Go ahead.
Walk us through.
Some of all of those things, all of those factors that you mentioned.
Was that the Breakers? Where were you guys?
No, it was in Orlando.
Oh, it was in Orlando. Okay.
It was in Orlando, and the Cowboys were coming off their second consecutive Super Bowl win, and Rick Goslin and I were assigned to cover the NFL meetings, and we had no idea that it was going to turn into something like this. But we were with a large group of reporters in the hotel lobby bar.
A lot of business done in the lobby bar, right?
But we were just,
Yeah, no, you got to hang out there. That's where you're at.
We were just talking football and stuff like that. And, Jerry came in. He was with Larry Lacewell. He was obviously
my old boss,
very agitated about something, kept, knocking glasses off the table, kept getting up and going to the restroom. At one point, he came over in our large group and started criticizing me because I'd been critical of him for putting the defending Super Bowl championship season at risk by not agreeing to fair terms with Emmett. And Emmett missed 2 games. They lost both those games. No team until the Cowboys did it ever started 0-2 and won the Super Bowl, and they did. So he was over sticking it to me that I was wrong about Emmett, that he did it the right way. This created motivation. I was like, you're just fortunate that Emmett was a consummate professional and totally dedicated to the team even after you weren't fair to him on his contract. So we had that conversation. Anyway, our group started to dwindle. The night started getting even later. And pretty soon it was just 4 of us, sitting at the table, and we're leaving. And as we leave, we're walking past the table where Jerry's sitting with Larry Lacewell. And I'm the last of our group to walk past him. And as I walk past Jerry, he grabs my pants leg and he says, "You don't want to leave now." And I said, "Why not?" And he said, "You'll miss the story of the year." And I said, "What's the story of the year?" And he said, "I'm going to fire that blankety Jimmy Johnson." Yeah. And I said, "Well, I believe we should sit down and talk about this." And so all 4 of us sat down. Well, quickly, that was the only thing Jerry talked about.
Wow.
And pretty quickly, my concern became these other 2 guys who were there who don't work for the Dallas Morning News, who are kind of just there till the free beer runs out, And so I said, hey, look, nobody has a notebook, nobody has a tape recorder, and everybody's had a few cocktails. So, Jerry, my understanding is this conversation is off the record, provided tomorrow, when we do have notebooks and we do have tape recorders and we haven't been drinking, you give us an honest assessment of your relationship with your head coach and where it stands. Larry Lacewell about dove across the table and kissed me.
Yeah.
Because in his mind, I was protecting Jerry.
You were trying to help
I was
Jerry.
really protecting us.
Right.
I didn't want these 2 guys to break this story.
Right.
I recognized the magnitude of the story if it ever actually was reportable.
Sure.
And so we're like, we got to get these guys away from Jerry. So we get in the elevator and we're like, what'd you guys think of that? And they're like, oh my God, unbelievable. And I said, what are you going to do? And he says, I'm going to write it. And I said, you can't write it. It's off the record. He says, I don't care. I'm writing it. And I said, look, have you guys ever been out with Jerry? No.
Hell no.
I said, have you ever been out with Jerry when he drinks? Because when Jerry drinks, all he talks about is firing Jimmy. It's been that way, for 5 years. Oh, really? I said, let's just see what he says tomorrow. You know, well, we made a deal. Let's see what he says tomorrow. I knew those guys were never going to get in front of Jerry again.
Sure.
And so that's how I protected our story. And the next morning, Jerry tried to use the off-the-record nature of the previous evening's conversation to our detriment. And it was actually Jimmy who put it all on the record. And
so you started with Jerry, and then you had to circle back. You had it.
So we
had it, and then you went to Jimmy with it?
No, we had it. We had this agreement with Jerry that the next morning or the next day he would provide us an honest assessment, right? So literally we'd been up until like 2, 3 in the morning about this whole thing. And Lacewell told us the next morning, he was the first person we saw. He said, hey, I've told Jimmy what happened last night.
Okay.
I think it's going to be okay. I think I've smoothed it over. He's pretty upset, but we'll see. And we go to from the pool area where we talked to Lacewell, pull open the door to the NFL offices, and there's Jerry standing there. And I think he's going to string us along all day and make us wait for this meeting. He says, let's go take care of that right now. So we go in the NFL meeting room, he kicks all these people out, and he starts totally lying about, misrepresenting his relationship with Jimmy, which that was part of the honest assessment. But he's like, well, you're the idiot who made it off the record. What are you going to do? You know? Yeah. And so we left that meeting, and Gary Myers, who was then in New York but used to cover the Cowboys beat in Dallas Morning News, one of my predecessors, says, hey, have you guys talked to Jimmy? And we're like, no. And they're like, he's looking for you. And so we come around another corner, and there's Jimmy. And Jimmy pulls us into this little cubicle, and he says, what did I do? He didn't say what happened. What did Jerry say? He already knew because Lacewell had talked to him. He said, what did I do, basically, to provoke that? And we said, we don't know. And so he said, well, what are you going to do with this? And we're like, well, we have independently confirmed that there was this toast that went bad at the table with you and some of the coaches, and we're going to report that. And he said, well, what about what Jerry said to you guys in the bar about firing me? I said, well, we can't report that. It's off the record. He says, okay, you can't report it's off the record. And basically he then said, hey, I'm leaving the owners' meetings to go home and to my home in the Florida Keys and to decide whether I want to remain the head coach of the Cowboys after hearing, last night that Jerry Jones repeatedly threatened to fire me in a bar. Yeah. So that's how it got on the record.
Did Jerry?
But we didn't run to Jimmy.
Right.
Jimmy knew.
Came
he
to
had
you.
already been told, and he was.
So Lace set it up though by telling Jimmy it got you the extra bit of the story is what it did.
It happened the way it happened. Lacewell was trying to save the relationship.
Right.
In his mind, save the organization from doing something terrible.
Right.
At a moment where, they're going to try to be the first team to win 3 straight Super Bowls, and Jerry is going to make a coaching change,
Jeez. The thing with, did you guys have an idea that Jimmy was flirting with Jacksonville?
Well, Chris Mortensen had reported that, right? Jimmy said, I think I'd be intrigued. And so, yeah, we knew, everybody covering the league, I think, knew there was tension in the relationship between Jimmy and Jerry. And we all had a sense of what it was about. Like, it was just a clash of egos about who was going to get credit, how much, and for what. Yeah. As the Cowboys rose from doormats to, 2-time defending Super Bowl champions. And I remember, Jerry was upset about the fact that Jimmy said he would be intrigued about the Jacksonville job. They were getting an expansion franchise, and were looking to hire their first coach. And Jimmy was either interested or trying to create leverage for himself. But he said what he said publicly. I know that weekend the Cowboys were playing the Giants on the final week of the regular season for the division title and a first-round bye.
Right.
Which with Emmett getting hurt in the game, they really needed more than ever.
Right.
And I went to Jerry in the press box before that game, and I said, Jerry, I mean, obviously there's this issue between you and Jimmy, and he's under contract. I said, would you consider letting him out of his contract if he won you another Super Bowl? And Jerry was indignant. He said, he didn't think that was a good question. He said, if he won me another Super Bowl, what if I won him another Super Bowl?
Wow.
And so we had a strong sense that there was a lot going on between the two of them that shouldn't be there present in a relationship where a team's winning the way it was.
Yeah, they had so much success together, though. it's probably an unfair question for me to ask you. Is there one that shares more blame than the other?
Well, I mean, I'm kind of, if you haven't gotten the idea by now, I'm kind of a traditionalist.
Yeah.
And so I felt like Jimmy was just being the coach.
Right.
Jimmy was doing what every head coach throughout the history of the NFL has done, right? It was Jerry, in my mind, who was crossing the line. Jerry was the owner / general manager.
Sure.
He wanted credit for personnel moves and trades. Jimmy felt, he had the Herschel Walker trade, the Charles Haley trade, Thomas Everett trade. I was a Jimmy. I guess I was seen internally as a Jimmy guy.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that was the wrong side to take, because obviously Jerry's been here for 30 plus years and Jimmy was only here for 5.
Right.
And so I've suffered at various times the consequences of that decision. Rich Dalrymple made a much different decision. He came in with Jimmy, but he was loyal to Jerry.
Right.
And, but I don't regret it, because I still think that it was Jerry who was, in the wrong. That why couldn't Jerry just be like every other owner whose team
is winning,
was successful? Like,
right.
You get credit for the team in general, for paying the salaries, for hiring the right coach, and he's rarely had the right coach since then.
You mentioned 30 years, and this is a question that Voch and I always talk about, though, in the 30 years since the last championships and stuff. As they are today, do you think Jerry has learned a lesson in the way that maybe they operate today? Or is this so much now more Steven and Will that Jerry doesn't have a biggest say in it?
I think the biggest thing that has happened this offseason is, it seems to me that Jerry has empowered Brian Schottenheimer in a way that he's rarely done with coaches.
Even Parcells?
He might have done it with Parcells. He did it with Jimmy, he did it with Parcells. But there have been very few examples of the coach getting to hire his own staff.
Right.
And we saw, without a doubt,
right.
Brian Schottenheimer has now hired this staff. Right. And it seemed to me that with the changes they've made on defense, that Jerry was open to doing it a different way. And he should have been. They've been horrible on defense for the most part, except for when Dan Quinn was here for the last 6 years. The only coordinator who's had any success is Dan Quinn.
Right.
Everybody else was one and done and historically bad.
Yeah.
Right. So I think Jerry has reacted 30 plus years in to doing things the way they probably should have been done all along, and not forcing assistant coaches on the next head coach, which he did all the time. Right. Yeah. I mean, ask Wade Phillips what that was like with Jason Garrett waiting in the wings.
Sure.
And I think that's why Jason Witten's not on this staff. Like, McCarthy didn't want that threat. Schottenheimer doesn't want that threat. But yeah, I think this offseason, Jerry has trusted the coaching staff and the scouting staff in a way that has not always been his method of operation.
There's this thought that just throughout the years, the Cowboys have gravitated towards the off the field trouble kind of guy. And me and Brian talk about this just doing draft work. Like, teams have different tolerances now for how bad your trouble is. And I guess the Cowboys have earned that reputation throughout the years. So now we're dealing with this Pickens situation, right? And the idea is that they have a tolerance for his behavior. Like, he didn't hit anybody. He didn't get caught with drugs in his car or nothing like that. He ain't gambling. But other teams around the league have a different tolerance than the Cowboys do. Have you noticed that shift, throughout the years?
I think everybody would make allowances for George Pickens.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if he was a street free agent, every team in football would try to sign him.
Yeah.
It's just the compensation that they'd have to surrender to the Cowboys, plus the value of the contract that he would be seeking from anybody else. It is a unique situation, and I'm really not sure where this is all going. He's still not out there. I mean, the workouts are voluntary,
right?
But he's technically under contract, and most of the players under contract are honoring their contract and participating. Dak is, CeeDee Lamb is, and he's not. And so I don't think he's happy about being franchise tagged. I don't think he's happy about making $7 million less than Jackson Smith and Jigba or less than CeeDee Lamb when he outperformed him on the field last year. I think it's odd that right before the draft, the Cowboys announced they're not going to use the next 3 months to the deadline to try to sign him to a multi-year deal, that they want to see more. Unless some of what they saw last year really troubled them, why are they hesitating to commit to such a dramatically talented, dynamic young player who means so much to their key play? The players they've invested the most in, are Dak and CD, and who affects their performance more than George Pickens?
Right. Sure.
So why are they not willing to commit? What have they not told us? What do we not know about what happened here last year? We know he doesn't always play hard, doesn't run great routes, doesn't want to block. We know that he's not always been on time, and he was disciplined at least once with CeeDee Lamb at a game for missing a series. But I don't understand the hesitation to sign the player.
Let me ask you this. Teach me something, please. I'm a young Cowboy fan, so throughout
talking about the age disparity,
because it's
very uncomfortable.
Don't feel bad, Ed. I'm sitting on the same couch
every day.
You. Yeah,
it's so important to the context, I guess, of what I'm about to ask you. I've never cared about agents and contract negotiations, right? But I know 3 agents by name. I don't know no other agents: Rocky Arsenault, Ty France, Dave Mulugeta. And I know those dudes because they've given Jerry a hard time when it comes to signing some of my favorite guys. The only reason I know Rocky Arsenault because I'm like, man, what the hell we doing with Zeke? What the hell we doing with this Zeke situation? That's the only agents I know, right? Throughout history, right? Has there ever been like Jerry having a hard time dealing with certain agents or like getting contracts done or something like that? Because just in my recent Cowboy life as an adult, this is the first time I've ever heard about the Cowboys having a hard time signing somebody because of dealing with an agent. Did this used to happen in the early 2000s? Right?
It happened with Pat Dye Jr., who represented Emmitt Smith.
Okay.
Yeah. Jerry tried to devalue. He had an opinion that the Cowboys' offensive line in the 90s was so dominant. The presence of Aikman and Irvin in the passing game, all of those things really created Emmitt's success. And he may have offhandedly said something to the effect of, there's 20 guys who work at McDonald's who could do what Emmitt Smith's doing this in our offense.
Wow.
And so I think he undervalued Emmitt, probably insulted Emmitt, and Pat Dye Jr. was a guy that they did not enjoy negotiating with. I mean, they don't enjoy negotiating with people who beat them. Mm-hmm. And Pat Dye Jr. beat them. He was willing with Emmitt. Emmitt was willing to miss games over his position contractually, and he won that negotiation. Dak's won his negotiations. That's why they don't like Todd France.
Yeah.
And Dak won his negotiation when he shouldn't have, right? He broke his leg and missed almost the entire season when he was franchise tagged. So there is a history of that. It's not frequent, but they definitely had the same trouble with Pat Dye Jr. representing Emmitt Smith that they've had with some of the people you mentioned.
So this is something that generally happens with like the best of the best players. Like if I'm saying his name again, pardon me, but if David Mulugeta was representing Zion Childress, this wouldn't be as big of a conversation. But it's because it's George Pickens and
Micah Parsons
and the year that they had or whatnot. Right. That's what makes this difficult.
Yeah, if you represent a player who is significant in determining the success of the franchise, and you negotiate publicly and aggressively on behalf of your client, which you should, and ultimately, if the Cowboys lose the negotiation and that's obvious to all, then they have a hard time with that.
Did Tony have a good agent, Romo?
Yeah, Jimmy. Who
was that?
Who did Romo have?
I don't know them people.
Was he at Condon?
He had Condon, who then deferred to one of his younger members. Yeah. But I think they had a pretty good relationship with Romo. I mean, Romo never got franchise tagged like Dak has been franchise. So Dak's the only quarterback in franchise history who's been tagged, and he's been tagged twice.
Right.
And once he signed on the day of the week 1 opener in Cleveland. So they didn't have the problem. Romo was an undrafted free agent, so they were able to manage his salary in a way that's a little bit different than Dak. I mean, Dak was obviously, as a 4th-round pick, Dak didn't get great money initially.
No, not at all.
But both wildly exceeded, the expectations the organization had for them when they either drafted him or signed him. Yeah.
My final question for you, Ed, is, and you mentioned Romo and Dak and stuff like that. of all the quarterbacks that you've covered, is Dak the one that maybe has been treated unfairly the most by maybe media and the fan base?
Well, I think a lot of Dak, and I think Troy Aikman would say
maybe you don't think Dak is unfairly treated. I mean, I just seemed like he seems very much.
I think he's a really good player. I think he's about all the right things. I think he's a championship caliber player, but he hasn't done it in the postseason.
Sure.
And when you're the highest paid player in the NFL at quarterback for 2 years, that doesn't really happen. And in those 2 years, you have a losing record both times,
yeah.
And don't make the playoffs on either occasion, and you're still the highest paid player, and you're 2-5, and you haven't never won a divisional round game. I get all that. So I don't know that he's treated unfairly. I also don't know that people who aren't around him on a regular basis appreciate Dak for the human being he is, for the leader that he is. And he is a great player.
Sure.
But you got to do it when it matters the most.
Right.
And people think, well, Troy Aikman I think Troy would argue he was treated worse than Dak.
Right.
They drafted Troy Aikman, and then 6 months later, they drafted Jimmy Johnson's quarterback with the first round pick from the next year.
Right.
And they were non-committal about which guy's going to be the starting quarterback.
Right.
And I think Troy would tell you after Jimmy left and Barry Switzer came here, and then he finished with Dave Campbell, that he had half a career. I think he would argue. So
sure.
I don't know that Troy was
no
treated great, but he knows that the fan base appreciates him in a way that they only, demonstrate for Roger Staubach because he won it all multiple times.
Right.
And Dak and Romo and these other guys, as great as they've been on the field during the regular season, they haven't delivered in the postseason, and that's when it matters.
So we would say that Dak can produce some good offense. He's top 5 for the most part whenever he's healthy, whenever he's playing. You said earlier, the defenses that have been rolled out there, run by anybody not named Dan Quinn for the last 6 or 7 years or so, have been historically bad. I think that's key. Historically. They're not just regular bad. I always have a joke. I say that the Cowboys had the 49th worst defense last year. You know what I mean?
In a 32-team league.
Out of 32 teams, they were the 49th worst, right? Christian Parker gets to kind of walk into this thing. Dak is going to play offense on the other side. And I guess the expectation for him is, hey, CP, just be better than Flus and them. Just be better than the last administration. This may sound homerish of me, but it's okay. How close do you think the Cowboys are to getting back to championship level? A year, 5 years? Voch, get out of here. Draft another quarterback. What do you think?
Well, I'm gonna read you a stat that I think is pretty amazing. And we've heard Jerry talk and even Schottenheimer talk about, hey, we have a lot of faith that we can turn this around quickly, and maybe they can.
Sure.
But the reason they feel that way, the validation for that opinion for them is Seattle didn't make the playoffs last year, New England didn't make the playoffs the year before, and they both went to the Super Bowl, and Seattle won. Sure. Well, the Cowboys joined the 2 Super Bowl teams, the Patriots and the Seahawks, among 5 teams that ranked the top 10 in the NFL in scoring offense, total offense, passing offense, rushing offense. The others were the Bears and Rams. That means the Cowboys were the only one of those teams that failed to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
And they didn't just fail to make the playoffs, they had a losing record.
Right.
That's how good they were offensively.
Sure.
Right? So the problem for me, now, we've seen them do this before, right? They did it when they hired Dan Quinn. Right after Mike McCarthy's first year, what did they finish? 6-10? 6-10.
Yeah.
He fired Mike Nolan.
Mike Nolan, right.
Who had a historically bad defense. So they'd allowed the most points in franchise history too, just like Matt Eberflus's crew. And after McCarthy's first year, they made a change at defensive coordinator. They hired Dan Quinn. They committed their draft to defense. Their first 8 players were defensive players, starting with Micah Parsons. Mm-hmm. They're following that blueprint now in hiring Christian Parker, drafting defense. 5 of their first 6 picks were on defense for the first time since 2021 when they hired Dan Quinn and drafted Micah Parsons.
Rashawn Gary, Jalen Thompson, guys like that.
Yeah. So, but you're going to be relying on a lot of young players, and the difference to me in those 2 cases is Dan Quinn was an experienced head coach, had gone to a Super Bowl as a head coach. Sure. and was an established defensive coordinator. Christian Parker has not called plays. Christian Parker has not been responsible for game plans. He's worked under some tremendous people. Vance Joseph in Denver, like look what Denver does on defense every year. Vic Fangio, look what Vic Fangio has done every year. But he's inexperienced. He has to be able to prove that he can do this, and he's yet to do that. I don't think they can be the 30th best defense rather than the 32nd best defense and make the playoffs or win the division. I think they have to, but they just have to be average.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? I mean,
I say 18.
Somewhere they're like last year, the Cowboys had the 7th highest scoring offense in the NFL, even though they played on offense on the longest fields in the league. They had the fewest possessions that began on the other side of the 50 of any team in football. And they still finished 7th in the NFL in scoring. I mean, what did Jerry say? I probably just watched Dak Prescott play the best football he's ever played. Yeah. And where did that get him? Yeah. Nowhere. So that's what made Jerry recognize, I got to get on this defense and I got to do it now, or I'm not going to have a defense and I'm not going to have a quarterback.
Right. I lied to you. Here's my last question.
I got one more too.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Ian brought out
here's my
stat sheet.
Mine is, okay. Mine is not a football question. I know this about Ed.
It's all right. Can I do one more football question and then
do your football question and then I'll get you. I have a question. I'm going to make him think about something. But go ahead.
You have really good last questions, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me ask you this. So you've lived through the league evolving. Quarterbacks play much longer than they used to. How many more years do you think we could realistically assume that Dak's going to play high-level quarterback? If you have a high-level quarterback, the image of your team is totally different than when you have to constantly find a guy or hope that a young guy can do it. How many more, and not even elite, because people get different with the word elite, I'm a homer, of just good football from Dak Prescott, how many more years would you assume he has left?
Well, it's hard to say. We don't. I think every year as a player ages, it becomes more and more difficult to perform at the level he has for most of his career. And you just never know. As we've seen, he can be injured. He suffered 2 significant injuries to his legs. Fortunately, he's not really overly reliant on being able to run. Like, to me, when he first came into the league, that was what was unique about him, was his ability to perform as a dual threat quarterback. And he talked about, hey, I like to run. I want to run. I think it fires people up, and it has an effect on everybody beyond just, affecting the defense that has to respect that possibility. I think Dak is a good enough passer and will always be a good enough athlete that I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that he could perform at a level where you can win a championship with him for 3 to 5 more years.
Yeah.
I mean, Tom Brady was 42, right? I mean, there's not been another one. Aaron Rodgers is still playing at 42, but there aren't a lot of quarterbacks who in their 40s have performed at a high level.
Right.
Favre, I guess, did. Yeah. But
we're starting to see it with Stafford playing at a very high level at older guy.
See, my hope as a Cowboy fan, right? My hope is that the Cowboys are very offensive led now. As Dak gets older and he goes from being top tier to just regular okay, that they turn into a defensive run the ball type squad and he can play a little longer because we're not relying on him so much. Kind of like what was supposed to happen with Tony, but Tony just kept getting hurt, right? Hey, let's lean on Zeke, DeMarco, whoever, play a little bit of defense and let's stay here. I would hope that Dak can fall into that category.
Well, he has a running back now.
He does have a running back now.
For sure. Even John Elway needed a running back to win a Super Bowl.
Sure.
That's a good point. The evolution of the team being more oriented toward defense and running the football. I think everybody would say that's what allows a quarterback to sustain a high level of play. And that's kind of where Schottenheimer comes from, right? I mean, the best teams he was with were in Seattle, and that's the way they played. Like Russell Wilson was a dynamic player in the last 4 minutes of a game, and he had that deep ball he could throw, but that was a team that was built around its defense and its running game. And so he has that in his DNA. And so I think that's a fair expectation to recognize that, Dak's role needs to diminish if the team's going to have more success. Sure. I mean, it's like what Aikman did.
Sure.
I mean, those teams were built around the defense.
Right.
And like, you tell Troy, like, I'm sure Troy laughs and is frustrated at times by the criticism he gets. Does this guy really belong in the Hall of Fame? I mean, he never threw 30 touchdown passes in a season, and this and that. He did what they needed him to do to win.
He didn't have to.
And I think Dak would do the same thing. Like, I don't think Dak would have a problem with, hey, you're not going to be out there being among the league leaders and, throwing touchdown passes and MVP consideration, but you're going to win games that matter.
Yeah.
Like when, I did that part, I was part of that documentary, the Netflix documentary, Jerry Jones, the gambler and his Cowboys. And when I watched that, my takeaway was that those guys were amazing in that they sacrificed to be great. Right. And they played their very best against the toughest opponents in the highest stakes game. And that's something none of the 30-plus teams since then has done.
Right.
Yeah. I always say I can't wait till the day where Dak gets to throw for 105 yards and win a postseason game. And we just run the ball and play defense. Go ahead, Brian. My bad.
Yeah, here we go. I know your two loves other than your family. I know your two loves are tennis and golf. I'm going to give you a choice to play on grass. You could play on grass at Augusta, or you can play on grass at center court at Wimbledon. Which one you're going to choose to play on? You can only choose one or the other.
Where would I embarrass myself the least?
I'm just saying you get to play.
Is there a gallery? Is there a crowd?
you get the line. You get to tee it up, or you get to first volley.
I've never been to Augusta. I have been to Wimbledon. We went 2 years ago, and it was just an unimaginable experience for me because I grew up playing tennis. So at least from like 15 on, I played for my high school team, 1 year from college, played competitively around here for a while. I would say, given my history and my continued affection for pro tennis, and I do watch every golf tournament that is played.
Yeah, I know you do.
I would probably play center court. I was so awed by just being there. Like, I can't believe I'm actually here.
Yeah.
After all the events I've covered in my career,
right?
And all the Super Bowls that I've been to, and big events I've been to, and I was when the Braves won. I'm a Braves fan. When they won the series, I was there. Wimbledon was I was the most awestruck at Wimbledon. So I'm going to say, hitting balls at center court on Wimbledon.
So dressing all white and serve it up.
Sure.
I mean, as much as you love golf, but I kind of figured you were going to lean towards the tennis aspect of things. But I know you really love both sports a lot. So.
I do, and golf is kind of new to me. I mean, I've only been playing for like 10, 12 years or whatever. But,
right.
I do love
you got a good golf game.
It takes you to some beautiful places in the country. Like I played Bandon Dunes and Pinehurst and Pebble Beach.
Yeah.
So it's an amazing sport that allows incredible vistas and travel and all that. But man, when I walked in the gates and at center court at Wimbledon to watch Alcaraz defend his championship, I was like, I can't believe I'm really here.
Yeah.
I need to learn how to golf. Ladies and gentlemen, we need
you golf.
We just need an applause track in the back. We'll figure it out at some point. Ed Werder, this was fantastic, sir. Thank you so much for being a part of the Doing All Right podcast. And hey man, don't be a stranger. You know what I'm saying? Since you're in the pod game now, we can be pod friends. You know,
okay,
so please come back.
With the lavish gifts you give your guests, incredible guest fees, who could ever turn down an opportunity to be here with you?
Hey man, that goodie bag cost a lot of money we gave you at the door.
I feel like I went to the Grammys.
I'll work on that quarter zip for you. Just give me the size.
Ed Werder.
Getting larger.
Channel 8 Insider, also the Doomsday Podcast. Fantastic name, by the way. If you guys trying to start podcasts, please pick a name soon because all the best names are just getting taken. Doomsday and Doing All Right are just, come on, y'all. Thank you very much, sir.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Enjoyed talking with you guys. Good questions, by the way.
What'd you say?
Good questions.
Put the camera back on here. No, I'm playing.
Very good questions.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you guys. Do all the YouTube things for us. Thank you very much. Hit all those buttons. Go to the website to find everything. The clips, the merch. Go over there, knock yourself out. We love y'all to pieces. We'll be back tomorrow. Probably a little bit of Q&A, but we'll let you know. Till next time. Crown.